Okay, so Kit Stapely, lovely to have you on the show today.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
I'm not quite sure how to introduce you because there's so many things that you've done in life and so many things that I know that you've done as well. And I'm sure there's other things that you've got up your sleeve that you're going to surprise listeners with. So let's start with your name. Your name is Kit. That's unusual. Is that your real name or is it your stage name?
It isn't what I was christened, but it's the name that everybody calls me when they like me or they're not cross with me.
Oh,
When I was 21, I said to my mother, "You no longer have the right to call me Christine because you no longer have the right to be that angry with me anymore."
ah,
So I actually changed it legally so that bank accounts and passports are not confusing any longer.
right. Okay, how interesting. I didn't know that bit. Well, there we go. That's out now. Fantastic. So I know you as a health creation mentor
Yeah.
and a yoga laughter therapist and a health creation mentor, as well as a health creation consultant. So which of those would you like to talk about first?
Oh, I think it's always good to lead with laughter.
Marvelous, marvelous answer. Okay, so yoga laughter,
Well,
yoga laughter
my first
therapy.
training was as a laughter yoga teacher. I don't actually teach laughter yoga any longer because I'm very sensitive to energy and I find it drains energy more than it builds for me. So I just work laughter into all the work that I do, really, and every day of my life.
Okay, so using your training to enrich your life.
Yes, and I wrote a book of quotations to remind people to laugh every day, which I actually find is a perfect book to keep in the loo. Wasn't what I thought when I was writing it.
Okay, and remind me what that's called. I have a copy of it, and it's verse, isn't it?
It could be verse
That's it.
because that always an anthology it
Yeah,
is, and an anthology could be verse, but everything could always be verse. Or
indeed,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So talking of that, let's sort of fast forward, or I don't know what we're going to go full circle in a way because cancer.
Mm.
We both had cancer, and our stories are sort of out there. But I always find it amusing, and I tell people that I have a friend who had cancer nearly 20 years ago, and all of the people that told her she would die is now dead, and she's doing very well, thank you. So,
Yes, two oncologists and my then husband.
and they wrote you off and said it was curtains.
Yes, and I mean, this is something I feel really strongly about, which is that you must never accept a doctor's reality, because you and I know, Elaine, how very limited that reality is. It refers to medical school in some cases 40, 50 years ago. And the world has changed completely, and they discover new things that we're on the cutting edge of every single day, it seems to me. So the doctor's reality was that they couldn't cure me. But that said to me, then, okay, then I have to find something else that will cure me. And I did.
And what was that? You can't say make that statement without telling us what it was. So how did you get through?
Actually, what led me out of the vortex that I was in was encountering Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. And it sort of dragged me. It was magnetic. So I got that book and I read it every single day, at least one chapter. I said all the affirmations out loud, and I didn't even travel away for one night without it for 3 years. So that was a really good path for me. But I think two things, I think. One is that we're all individuals, and what works for you is so highly individual, that nobody but you can say what works for you. I've worked for 15 years as a health creation mentor, and the key for everybody who turns their diagnosis around is different. There's no uniformity. It's so individual. So that was one thing. And the other thing is, and it's not an easy thing to do, and I suspect it's exactly what you've done. We've never talked about it, but it is setting your intention and not letting anybody deflect you. When they say, oh, poor Kit, she's been so brave through all the chemotherapy, but now she's gone into denial. You can't buy into that. You can't be deflected from your intention, which in my case was to get well and cancer-free.
That's really so important. And in my case, I suppose that's what I did, but I never thought of it in those terms. There was never any question that I was going to die from this wretched disease. Never any question whatsoever. Yeah. So I suppose in telling myself and the world that, I suppose that my intention was set, if you want to use a form of words, but it is so important. And it's what I tell everybody. You can throw all sorts of lotions and potions and supplements and treatments and all sorts, but if you don't have the intention that you're going to stay, you won't. Simple as that.
Exactly.
So your determination got you through, as well as the various treatments that you had, and that was breast cancer, I think, wasn't it?
No, the first one, we're in the reverse order. The first one I had was lymphoma, which
that's right, yes.
Indolent when I was diagnosed, but then when it got aggressive, I had a stem cell transplant and that failed. And I'd had masses of chemo and infections and God knows what up to that point. But then when they ran out of options and they'd used every chemo drug they could, except 2, which I hadn't had the legal limit of, they then wrote me off. And I said, well, no, I'm not ready to go. I want a miracle. And everybody was going, oh, poor Kit, she's gone into denial.
Yes, yeah, delirious.
Yeah, oh my God, the poor thing, you know, and all slightly patronizing. But in fact, it was just that I want a miracle. And it felt so audacious because miracles happen in the Bible. When do you hear of miracles in modern day life? And I certainly wasn't a Jesus figure in any way. So I didn't think that I merited a miracle, but actually I don't think you have to merit it. I think you just have to be determined to get it, to have that vision, and not be deflected from it.
Absolutely. So that was how many years ago now? That was
1998.
Okay,
so 20 years.
20 years. Yeah, your 20 years. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Happy cancerversary, as some people say. So,
well, I mean, I was diagnosed in 1992, and I spent the intervening time pretty much having treatment. I think I once made it 2 years without any treatment. Do you find this when you're working with people that it's so often people would not give up what cancer taught them?
I don't know anybody who has not said that the cancer diagnosis journey hasn't taught them anything. You know, it has revolutionized their life, and actually it was a blessing, because had it not come along, other things would have happened in their life that they're now prepared for. And also nothing phases us, does it? You know, no matter what comes along, like your book, you know, it could be worse. I mean, I was burgled last week, and I'm just thankful that nobody was hurt. I have got stuff returned. It's highly inconvenient. My car's still missing. I'm still discovering things that have been stolen. You know, when we came on this call, I couldn't do the call in the room that I wanted because the thinking router's been stolen. and cables and all sorts. So, you know, it's a minor irritant. When you've been faced with your own mortality, you know, what else? What else is there that life can throw at you? So yes, I'm definitely with you on that.
Yeah.
So through your mentoring, you would encounter this as I do as well with other people. So how do you turn people around with the mentoring? How does that work?
Again, it's so highly individual. Everybody's journey is individual because everybody is here to learn something. I mean, that's what I regard cancer as, is the universe going, I have a role for you and you're not yet qualified to play
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
I am sending you a training. And when you embrace the cancer diagnosis as, well, okay, what is it I need to learn now? Let's just cut to the chase. Everything changes.
It does.
And that's so individual. What the role is that the universe has for us, what the obstacles are in each individual case just can't be summed up, because it's an exploration and a journey with every single client. Never had duplicates.
I think also it helps us to feel lighter, doesn't it? I don't know if you've experienced that, but I have generally I have a lighter feeling in life, sort of post cancer and pre cancer, that there's nothing that can't be solved. There's nothing that can't be got over in some way or another. And actually, you know, life throws all sorts of stuff at us, but I'm very much in my head going, so what? Yeah, okay, fine. Well, there's a way around this. So if you can't go under, you go round. If you can't go round, you go under, you know, whatever it is to get around the issue.
Well, I'm a bit like that anyway, because, you know, I had tremendous learning difficulties at school, and I was in my 30s before I discovered I wasn't stupid. So I always make it up as I go along, really, because the way people teach information doesn't work for me.
No, it's very, again, that's something that's individual. There's something like 100, I think last I looked, there's 108 versions of dyslexia. I mean,
Really?
yeah, 108 versions.
Now, is that specifically word blindness or
different forms?
Things that come under the major
Yes.
heading of, you know, which is also dyspraxia and,
Yes.
and those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, as you say, everybody's individual. So you bring laughter into everything you do, clearly. So, you know, you're a light-hearted spirit, and you do acting as well.
Yes, we're in rehearsal for a play which is a contraction of Midsummer Night's Dream at the moment, which will be played on the neighbouring villages, village green and pond, to people on picnic rugs.
Oh,
and I get to play Titania.
Oh, wow. Very good. Very good. And when is that?
July the 20th, I think, the Saturday that weekend anyway.
Right. Okay, lovely. I might see if I can come down to Wiltshire then and have some time down there. I might come and see you perform. Who knows?
That would be fun. That would be fun.
See if I can get this interview out before then on the radio for you as well then. So where is it going to be when you say Village Greens? What's your Village Green network?
West Camel in Somerset.
West Camel. That's near Glastonbury, isn't it? Well, not too far away.
It's about half an hour from Glastonbury, exactly.
Right. Okie dokie. And when is Glastonbury weekend? Isn't that coming up soon, or has it been?
Not this year.
Oh, they're not doing it this year.
No. They're letting the fields rest, I think.
Oh, okay. So they're allowing the local play companies, the local actors, to do their thing. So instead of going to on the Camel train, because there's a train station, isn't there, at Camel? Isn't that the one? Castle Carey. That's it. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So so that's coming up. You've got the health creation consultant title as well. So what does that involve?
Well, that's really taking the health creation process into organizations. So like schools, which I don't know if you remember from your training. I was really struck by it because I've been working with the picture of health for 15 years, and I find it a really useful tool. to figure out where people are and what is their way forward. And what's extraordinary about all the pictures of health that we were shown from schools is that they all had this same outline, which was roughly like an old-fashioned knight's helmet.
Yes.
And that's extraordinary, because that really means that in that particular kind of organization, there are problems duplicated to a greater or lesser extent right across the board. And what's so wonderful about being a health creation consultant is that that process can help people to cure all those problems and change the outline of their picture of health to one that really is an organizational picture of health.
So for the listeners, can you explain what you mean by picture of health, and what is the tool that you use?
The picture of health is a spider graph, which means if you imagine a spider's web, it's circular, and from a central point in the middle, there are 12 lines that go out. And the way it works is that in each of those 12, what we call principles, you answer 10 questions. So it's diet, exercise, detox, mind, spirit, body, energy, environment. And you answer 120 questions, yes or no, in total. And at the end of that, you have a really accurate picture to somebody who's used to reading it of what's going on with you. And beginning there, we can change people's lives. Lives have been turned around by somebody literally just buying themselves a nice vase and putting it on their desk and putting fresh flowers in it once a week. It highlights where we're neglecting ourselves.
And it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, they say every picture tells a story. So when you see the illustration of the spider graph, as you described it, you can see where the shortcomings are, whether it's in personal environmental situations, or if it's external to you, or if it's finance or actually I'm saying finance. Finance isn't in there, is it? Or is it?
Not really, but it's sort of covered under stress.
Stress, yes, yeah. So yes, stress is a huge one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how do you where do you start when you're mentoring somebody? You get them to fill in the questionnaire first of all, do you?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then if you remember it, it's along the horizontal axis. The top two quadrants are body and environment. So those are the material world, the things that you can see and are tangible. Underneath that, the bottom two quadrants are mind and spirit. So in fact, if people are light on the bottom, if you know what I mean.
Like they've got little bottoms, yes.
Yes, if they've got little bottoms, you know that those things are things they're doing to themselves.
Yes.
And of course, those are the easiest things to fix, actually. And they make such a huge difference. I love the story that Dr. Rosie Daniel told us about a session she did of everybody doing their picture of health in Ireland, and I can't do accents, so I'm just going to treat this person as if she spoke exactly like me. And she went up to Rosie and said, oh, you've got to help me. You've got to help me. How am I going to lose weight? I've got to lose weight. How am I going to do that? And Rosie said, well, let's have a look at your picture of health. So she looked at it, and in her picture of health, it was really clear that her environment was really her biggest problem. So she said, tell me about your environment, what's going on there? And it turned out that she was living in her husband's house that he'd grown up in. It was his parents' house, obviously, and it was right on the edge of a quarry which had encroached and encroached and encroached and encroached, and she felt like she was about to fall into the quarry, and it was really bothering her. And so Rosie said, does your husband know how you feel about this? She was actually considering leaving her husband because it was so traumatic for her. And she said no. And Rosie said, well, I think before you leave him, it'd be nice if you sat him down and said, I've got to this point that if you insist on continuing to live here, I'm going to have to move out. And of course, once she explained it to her husband how she truly felt, they moved. And she came back to the next year's picture of health creation session. And she bounced up to Rosie and said, Rosie, it's me. And Rosie didn't recognize her. She'd lost all this weight. And Rosie said, how did you do it? That's amazing. She said, oh, do you know, I didn't even really realize. I'm so happy we've moved. I'm in the house of my dreams. And her whole life had changed because she'd zeroed in on the one issue that she was just being brave about. And that's one of the things I find quite moving about being a health creation mentor, is how brave people are, how they go, I can cope with this. Oh, I can cope with this. I can cope with this. And they're practically drowning. And then when you say, what would happen if you did so-and-so, they go, oh, you know, I couldn't possibly do that, because we build up our resistances around a situation. And when you I don't lead people, but when I don't drop a subject and I go, well, what do you think would happen? What's the worst that could happen? And what would you, if you knew that there would be no negative consequences, what would you truly do? People find that they can open up huge gussets in their life that they don't even know are there.
No, it truly is the benefit of having a mentor, friendly eyes outside of the situation, that you can see what's going on, but then also proven. When you do the picture of health, it's a starting point, isn't it? It's a line in the sand, and people can then see their own picture and see what they're doing to themselves, and a few hints and suggestions. People have the answers inside of them, don't they, at the end of the day?
Yes, but it seems that nobody asks the right questions.
Exactly.
Until you get into this mentoring situation. And then so many things become clear. And I have to say, we always laugh a lot. Even if somebody's in extremis with a real overwhelmed situation, I don't let them off the phone until we've had a couple of real chuckles about life and their situation.
That is important, not to forget that we have a sense of humour. I mean, it's almost like black comedy, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
you know, there is always a funny side on anything, isn't there? I mean, you know, whether it's using the commode or, you know, which I still have in my bedroom actually. But I had a small amount of chemo for my last kidney cancer, and I became incontinent, and nobody had ever come across that as a side effect of chemo. But there I was. So, and I still have my commode in my bedroom because on occasions it's been very useful, without going into too much detail. But, you know, I think it's funny, and I've got, you know, a couple of little things that are sitting on there, and I smile every time I look at them. You know, so there's always an upside. It could be verse.
It always could be verse, and always, you know, I have this sort of acting background, and for me, it's always about playing it for laughs and not playing it for drama and, you know, tragedy and whatever. And that's really one of the big reasons I got through everything I did. I really, I don't want to use the word hate because it's such a strong negative thing, but
Dislike.
I
Dislike intense.
strongly dislike all these soap operas. I think people get a bit competitive with EastEnders and neighbours and things. And when something dramatic like a cancer diagnosis happens to us, we can have a tendency to play it up because suddenly we're the center of the drama and everybody's calling us and saying, how are you? Are you all right? Everybody wants to know the latest. And you can get into playing it for drama. And I think that's fatal. You don't want to you have any reason to keep this disease around. You need this disease to be laughed out of countenance.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you've raised that, actually, because I do come across some people who it's very clear they do not want to get better.
Yeah.
And it's their get out of jail card.
Yeah.
Oh dear, poor thing, she died of cancer. Oh dear, poor thing, he's got, you know, this awful disease or whatever. And they do play it up. And I've got, over the years, I've now become more aware of the fact that, you know, not everybody wants to get better, and that's to be respected as well if that's their choice. We all have a choice, don't we?
Well, I early on, the person I credit with writing the book with me, because we collected the laughter quotations together, Rhonda Byrne. She was a laughter colleague of mine, and she was the healthiest person I knew. If she was stressed, she went swimming, she laughed at everything, and she died of cancer. And she knew what I did. She'd given parties, you know, for the picture of health and things. But she never asked me, what would you do, Kit? And we were close. And I think that even if you don't know it, it can be your soul's chosen exit route. And that's the reality. We all, you know, we're all going out of here feet first eventually.
Yeah, that's the only thing guaranteed in life, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes, and not even taxes are guaranteed. You have to make some money before you get taxes. But dying is non-negotiable. And there is such a bigger wisdom than ours, however wise we get to be. When I nearly died, and I was in hospital, and I already had a temperature of 105, but they decided to go ahead with putting in lines in my chest and giving me the dose of chemo that was prescribed. And then apparently all my vital signs crashed, and they called my husband and said, you better come in, she's not going to make it through the night. And I came to at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I suppose. And I knew something had happened because I was different. I knew everything for a start. I knew how beautiful and how simple life was. And I knew that community was a much higher value than anybody in my life recognized. And it was so beautiful, that place. And I actually couldn't quite squeeze myself back into my body. I couldn't spell. I was writing it all down, trying all the insights and revelations that I had from being semi out of my body was so beautiful, and I wanted to record them all, but I couldn't remember how to spell. So I wound up spelling community with a double E, like you'd spell committee, because I'd forgotten all about Y's.
Yeah.
But I've always been grateful for that experience, because I know death is nothing to fear. It's beautiful. It's, you know, it's like we are in our bodies weighted down by as many pounds as we weigh of gravity. And when your spirit shakes free of that, it's marvelous.
Have you read the book by Pat Pilkington, The Golden Thread?
No, I haven't. I met Pat actually in the mentor training, but
Yes.
I haven't
I
read.
highly recommend. And Pat wrote it while she was dying from pancreatic cancer.
Right.
And I highly recommend it. It's an extraordinary book, which endorses what you've said. Absolutely.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
I felt slightly cheated that there had been no hovering over my body watching them work on me, and no white light that I recall.
I've had these experiences as well, not through cancer, but through a dental operation and childbirth, two separate occasions. So yes, I'm with you on that. It is an interesting experience, but it's not scary. It's just interesting. I found it. So what else would you like to talk about? There's so many other things that I'm sure we could wheedle out of you, but we don't have an awful lot of time left.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about my most recent cancer. When I called you, for which I will be forever grateful, and said, you know, they say I've got 3 invasive lumps in my left breast, and I know that you got rid of a year to live, 4th stage lymphoma.
Yes.
In 8 months. So tell me what you did. And I took note.
16 weeks, actually. Don't exaggerate. I've told you a million times, don't exaggerate. 16 weeks. Yes, so yes, you phoned me. Yes, I remember.
And so you, from what we talked about, I took away hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which I stuck with. I took away Tim Part, the marvelous homeopath. I was already seeing an Ayurvedic doctor because the detox diet that I had been on for 18 months, I think, when I was diagnosed. So it was like, God, what more do I need to do? What do I need to learn now?
Yeah.
And several little things that just became part of in my brain. I used to get out of the bath and smother my body in Joe Malone bath oil. Now it's coconut oil. And I used to, you know, spritz perfume everywhere. And now my clothes get the perfume. So there were a lot of things. But again, I think my takeaway from that, the biggest takeaway was I set my intention. And my intention that point wasn't a miracle. My intention was they wanted to, I said, look, let's do a double mastectomy and then I won't have to worry about breast cancer anymore. And they said, oh no, that's not going to work because it could have already metastasized. So I said, well, what do you recommend? So they said, we think you should do a lumpectomy, which would have taken the nipple and I'd have been lopsided, which to me was worse than being no breasted. And so, okay, I agreed. But the day before the surgery, I had the strongest physical intuition that that wasn't the right path for me. It was absolutely clear. The only question was, what was I going to do about it? Because I don't like, I mean, I'm a bit of a rebel, but I identify very strongly with the kid in the Emperor's New Clothes, you know, goes, but he's not wearing anything. He's not doing it to make trouble. He's doing it to be authentic. And I never like to make trouble, but I learned that I have to be authentic. So, so I rang up the hospital and I said, I'm so sorry. My intuition is absolutely non-ambiguous. And I'm cancelling the surgery. And they really weren't pleased with me.
Because I think we spoke on the Saturday as you were due to have the surgery on the Monday.
Right.
I think it was that close.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was planning to go ahead with it. I was trying to get my head around how many times I had to wash with this,
Oh,
special
that
soap
vile
they gave.
stuff. Yeah, it's disgusting. And all the chemicals in it. Oh dear.
And I mean, it was just really, really strong, and we don't have time to go into all of those details now. So it then seemed to me, my intention was to make my body so healthy that even if it had metastasized, that those would disappear. Because what is the point of nibbling away a piece that may have already metastasized? To me, that didn't make any sense once I started thinking about it through my lens.
Mm.
And so that was it, really.
So what's your current situation?
My current, well, I did that. It was just over a year when I went back to my surgeon, because you don't graduate to anybody else until you've graduated from the surgeon, who's a lovely man, absolutely lovely man. And I'd been really, really ill in January. I'd lost over a stone, and I, none of that looked like very good news. And I figured that my immune system might have been too busy with that to get rid of cancer cells. So when he said to me, "It's gone," I was completely gormless. I just went, "Okay, what do you mean gone?" And he said, "Gone." And I said, "Okay, gone as in," and he said, "Kit, it's gone. There is no trace of it. In fact, you really need to know what you're doing to be able to identify the scar tissue. It's gone."
Brilliant.
And I mean, I just was amazed. I knew I was going to get rid of it, but I didn't know that I was going to get rid of it that completely, that quickly.
And when was this?
That was in March.
March this year. So where are we now? June. So you're still celebrating, I guess.
Yes, but I'm working on my health, because clearly I have a cancer predisposition.
Yeah.
Some people it's heart, for some people it's stroke, that is where my weakness is. So for me, it's essential that I continue my vision of my body being so healthy that cancer can't exist anywhere.
Yeah, that is so important. So many people that I mentor, they do very well, and then they go off the rails and they start eating badly or not exercising, and they get too much stress. Maybe they go back to work and they take on an even more stressful position, whatever, and then it comes back again, and there they are a year later talking to me, and we're the same old position, and they've forgotten all the things that they did to get clear.
Yeah.
So it is a never-ending journey, and it's interesting that people with cancer, we talk about the journey, and life is a journey, and with cancer you just can't let up, can you, at all?
No, it's part of, it's you deal with it. It's like if you have long legs or short legs, you deal with it.
Yeah.
You don't buy, jeans that are for 32-inch legs if you've got 29-inch legs, and just have them draping around in the hope that everybody will think you've got long legs. It doesn't work that way. And cancer doesn't work that way either. Cancer, is something that is here to teach you something. And if you forget it, it'll have to come again, probably, and slap you around the face until you got it.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because my last cancer was on my face. It was skin cancer last year.
Right.
Which I dealt with. So I've had 4 now. That's quite enough. I'm not going to get any more. Absolutely, I'm determined. That's it. So I've had my slap around the face with skin cancer. Literally.
You still follow.
I'm yes.
It's part of your life, isn't it?
I do. I still see Tim. I see Tim. I saw him last week, actually. I see him every 6 weeks.
Do you still?
I have my checkups in Swindon. I live in Nottingham now mostly, but I go. I much prefer to go down to Swindon, where I've trained my team, as it were. I go in and I ask the doctor how she is. You know, I'm the patient, and I'm checking up on her health, and we find it quite funny. I have my blood tests already printed out on the table because she knows I'm going to ask for them. They're always fine, but I go through them myself so that they're okay. The National Health okay is not my okay. So I go through them. I go on Dr. Google and I look at all the different parameters. And very often with me, it's B vitamins. So that's eating more fruits, seeds, avocados, those sorts of things. So we can transform our health through our diet and our mind, and they're the two key things, aren't they?
Absolutely. And like the story of the Irish woman.
Yes, the environment is huge.
The environment is very strong too.
Yeah, and the mind, body, spirit, environment, which are the 4 pillars of the picture of health, aren't they? That we both trained with Dr. Rosie Daniel. So there we go. So there's a little advert for Rosie. Hello, Rosie. So are you open for business these days as a mentor? Are you continuing working, or are you just resting?
I am, but I'm also writing a book because I did a talk at the Penny Bronze Centre. I missed your talk.
Oh right, we both spoke at the same event, didn't we? Yes, earlier on this year. Yes.
And that went down so well. And people were bandying about words like legend and that kind of thing, and inspired people that this key thing of not to take on your doctor's reality. Your doctor's reality doesn't know anything about who you are, and who you are is so powerful. That's who's going to beat this thing. So I am writing a book, but I do have some vacancies for mentoring clients at the moment. So I'm available.
How do people get in touch with you then, Kit?
Well, probably the best thing to do is go to my website, which is Kit Stapely, STAPELY.com.
Okay.
And then you can get in touch with me through that, and you can have a little. I haven't updated it to reflect this latest cancer story because I'm busy putting the book together, and I don't know what aspects are going to wind up being in balance or. So yes, do feel and if people just want a quick chat, I always offer a 30-minute absolutely free call so that we can get a feeling of whether we would work well together.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's kitstapely.com. Fantastic.
Exactly.
So that's marvellous. We've run out of time now, so thank you so much for being on the show. And
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Forward to watching your progress as ever and flourish, and look forward to meeting you again in person very soon.
Me too.
So thank you very much, Kit. Bye for now.
Thanks, Elaine. Bye-bye.